Hello and many thanks for joining us on this edition of the program People, Politics and Power. I am Imonia Marere. As the year 2024 winds down, many institutions, governmental and non-governmental, are taking stock of their activities, their performances, and of course, the general well-being of the country. A recent report by the National Bureau of Statistics (NBS) on Crime Experience and Security Perception Survey is one such stock-taking that has generated interest and concern. The report highlights the alarming scale of ransom payments as Nigerians paid over 2.23 trillion naira from May 2023 to April 2024. According to the survey, the amount was paid by households affected by the over 2.2 kidnapping incidents, 2.2 million kidnapping incidents. It said an estimated 51.89 million crime incidents were recorded across the country during the 12-month period. Out of these, the Northwest region recorded the highest incidence with 14.4 million cases and paid 1.2 trillion naira as ransom, followed by the North Central with 8.8 million cases. The Southeast region was the least impacted with 6.18 million incidents. The reports also show that rural areas with 26.53 million incidents were more affected by crime than urban areas that had 25.36 million cases. Of those affected by kidnappings, 65% were forced to pay ransom, with the average amount paid put at 2.67 million naira. Now, in a related development, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission (EFCC) conducted a major operation in Lagos, arresting 792 individuals involved in cryptocurrency investment fraud and romance scams. Among those apprehended were 148 Chinese and 40 Filipino nationals, who alongside Nigerian accomplices targeted victims primarily from the Americas and Europe. The suspects operated from a 7-story building on Victoria Island, which functioned as a sales center for their illicit activities. Similarly, in early November, the Nigerian police bust a cybercrime syndicate in the Jaghi area of Abuja, while arresting 113 foreigners and seizing their sophisticated equipment. The Abuja syndicate, like that of Lagos, specialized in hacking company accounts, money laundering, marketing scams, and human trafficking that have adverse impacts on Nigeria's image and its socio-economic development. These incidents underscore the complex security challenges which Nigeria faces, ranging from internal conflicts and economic crimes to international fraud schemes. These issues, no doubt, require a comprehensive approach. Now, this is the focus of our discussion today as we do an in-depth analysis of Nigeria's physical and cyber security situation and the impact on the nation's economy and the well-being of its people. We will be meeting our guest analysts who are already here in the studio right after this time out. Stay with us.
Of our dream, the Nigeria we need is the united, indissoluble, and cohesive Nigeria which guarantees equity, fairness, justice, and prosperity for its citizens. That is our focus on people, politics, and power. It is fresh, insightful, impactful. It's a must-watch. People, politics, and power on AIT.
All right, let's get to meet our guest analysts who are already here in the studio. From my immediate left is Dr. David Aheruvo, FCA, an economist and a chartered accountant, as well as being a forensic auditor. Thank you so much, Dr. Aheruvo, for
Thank you,
joining
sir.
us.
Thank you, sir.
We're also joined by Hania Jafaru. Hania Jafaru is an AI, that is artificial intelligence and cybersecurity consultant. Thank you so much for joining us,
Thank you for having me.
Also joining us is Dr. Jonathan Onoja. Dr. Onoja is, of course, a security analyst and has been on the program a number of times before. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you,
And compliments of the season.
Wish you the best of
Great.
the season. Thank you.
Welcome. All right, so gentlemen, we have on our hands not just the issues of kidnapping for ransom, which has become very rife in many parts of the country from the figures that the MBS has provided, but we now also have cyber security issues. Before now, it was thought that it was Nigerians that were involved in these cyber scams. And we have seen a lot of that with the arrest of young Nigerians by the EFCC. But now we're beginning to see that perhaps the foreigners are actually the driving force of all of this. So let's begin with the MBS figures, the MBS report. Dr. Aheruvo.
Yes, I'm quite alarmed, but I'm not surprised that kidnapping is thriving, because in a damping or depressed economy, you discover that crime increase, because crime is a compelling factor for fraud and criminal activities. You will also note that the report stated that the Northwest is heavily impacted. And why is because that is the entry point. And this entry point was created by our connection or our closeness to the Sahel region, from where these militias were imported for political reasons then, in 2014, 2015. So they find their way in, settle in Zamfara, Sokoto, and from there move to Kaduna and others. That's why the Northwest was more heavily impacted. Then the North Central was equally impacted because of Niger State, because Niger State is in the Northwest, but it's in the North Central, but it's closer to the Northwest. And that is why it's more in the North Central. Having said this, you discover that the ransom taking is as a result of no proper actions and no proper planning to enable the government take an effective action against these invaders. I'm of the opinion that this thing can be cleared within a reasonable time if the government wants it. And of course, the military, if they are determined, they will be of help. But first of all, there must be the political will. Then the military will be compelled to take action with an ultimatum. So that is what I believe should be done on that.
Mr. Jafaru, the figures are staggering. 2.23 trillion naira in 1 year. The expectation would have been that as a country that is evolving technologically, that technology would be better deployed in monitoring this process. But it doesn't appear to have happened, at least in the last 1 year of this report.
Well, looking at, I've always been an advocate of one that use technology to make things easier and bring forth efficiencies. Looking at it from security standpoint, technology is one thing that you can use to achieve results in the area of automating processes. And once technology is embedded into certain aspects of the country's processes, it aid in curtailing some of the acts and the activities of these criminals. It saddens me that we are still, even though we've embedded technology in some aspects of our systems, in the area of security and the area that tends to be very important and relevant to the existence of the country, we have not so much put emphasis in embedding security and technology into those processes. And technology is now advancing. We are still crying and lamenting on embedding the current technology. Meanwhile, new technologies are coming forth. So if we've not been able to embed the current technology like the artificial drone system, I don't know how we're going to be able to now embed technologies like AI that's coming to help in making some of these things easier for security agencies. So I believe that once technology is embedded into our systems and our processes, looking at it from the standpoint, looking at it from technologies like drone systems that can be used to monitor some of these activities, and these technologies are not as expensive as we as generally presumed or as assumed, because you can build this technology locally. We have kits that are building drones. The only major challenge is the fact that they've not been able to get sustainable power to keep the drones in the air for quite a number of hours. But when it has to do with the main products that will keep this drone flying, we have the skill set, we have the intellectual prowess and the power to ensure that this technology is available. So we can't say because probably we're not getting this technology outside the country, so because that we can't embed it. We can build it and get other systems to attach it to ensure that it's able to stand in the air. Once we're able to get these technologies embedded into the system, I think to a large extent we'll be able to we'll be able to drive security and ensure that one is safe while surfing, going through our daily activities.
Dr. Noja, going by the MBS survey report, 2.2 million incidents in 1 year. Do you think that it captures all of it from what you have seen over the past couple of months? Does this figure, 2.2 million, actually reflect what may have actually happened across Nigeria, in all the regions of the country?
Well, I think with due respect to the researchers and perhaps whatever methodologies that was used in getting those figures, I think these figures to a large extent is contestable. If it is for ransoms, I had no problems, but 2 point something, then you can just imagine the numbers of incidences that happens in a day, every day. So I think the need to review that figure to meet up the actual numbers of incidences per day or per hour, as they may wish to use, whichever medium they wish to use, because 2 point something, it also further expose Nigerians to international communities, how weak our security agencies are. I don't think that
This represents only kidnappings.
Well,
2.2.
that's why I'm saying that
Yes.
that figures is much. It's alarming, and someone may say it's perhaps exaggerating, but that to me is an estimated figure. That's not an actual figure, because you cannot be too sure of an incidence of that magnitude. You may not know whether it is this numbers or not this number, but approximately they should have said, okay, perhaps maybe 1 million incidences or 800 incidences or 1.2 incidents, but 2 million, it's threatening and it undermines our national security in a way. And so I would say that the MBS should also I know very well that before releasing this data, they have done some, a whole work on it, but I think it needs much work again to get that actual incidents, numbers of incidences that they may wish to portray. Because I think in the last 48 hours, even the DSS has invited, I heard, I've not confirmed yet, that invited perhaps some individuals that are actually throwing lights on that figures and also saying,
The
oh, come on.
DSS has denied that.
Oh, they have denied that.
Yes.
Oh, I heard. I've not. Like I said, they have not confirmed that. But I think these figures, if we have to go with these figures, then Nigeria, I think, is in the state of comatose. We need to actually come with a figure that when you also, you see it, they should be reasoning that this is a figure that we can go home with.
But from what you hear and read every day, I mean, we live in Nigeria. From what we hear and read, either on the social media or in newspapers on a daily basis, does this figure not kind of reflect what you have been hearing and seeing?
In as much that we have incidences of kidnapping, robberies and all of that in various parts of the country on a daily or weekly basis, I actually humbly oppose to these figures. And it will also do justice to it if there's a presentations, perhaps state by state, local government by local government, incidences of case by case, and where presented in a manner that Nigerians can say, oh, well, we can agree with these figures. Because if you throw these figures to the public and you say, oh, because it's happening on a daily basis, come on, people will begin to say, come on, how did they come up with this? I know I was in your studio here during the last bad governance protest, and I was like, we are hearing incidences of people that even has hypertension, blood pressures collapsed on the street. I witnessed one that I equally mentioned and make references to, where a vehicle hit somebody down around the Maraba sharp corner axis, and it was taken that it was a bad governance protest that killed the person. So if we are now saying, oh, perhaps the numbers of Nigerians that have died in 1 year, or maybe they can come up with this assumption, but that have been perhaps kidnapped or killed by case of incidents of robbery, kidnapping, and all that. With these numbers, I humbly reject it.
All right, Dr. Herubo,
Yes,
before we come to the figures of how much was paid
yes,
as
as ransom.
ransom or not, let's look at the figures as it pertains to rural and urban incidents.
Yes.
Because the NBS report says that the incidence of kidnapping was more prevalent
in the urban area.
In rural areas.
I mean, in the rural area
than in the urban areas.
Exactly, yes.
26.5 million incidents in rural areas,
yes,
as opposed to 25.36.
Yes.
So what do you think was responsible for that?
The proportion to urban and rural, I don't doubt it. It will be happening more in rural area than urban area. And why I have that assertive belief is because the rural area has a large unprotected locations within Nigeria. You can imagine what usually happens in Benue State almost every day. The farmers cannot go to farm, Zamfara. Farmers cannot go to farm. All major states that are food basket of Nigeria, most of them can no more go to farm. So it happens not in the city of these states, but in their rural areas, in their farmlands. Are you getting what I'm saying?
Mass abduction more in the rural
in the rural area.
Yes.
Car coming from the farm and hijacked, truck coming from the farm and hijacked with all the people that are there, and they are taken away captive. Those are the things that accumulated to that figure, and I believe very much that that percentage allocated to rural area is reasonable and is higher than that of the urban area. But the urban area, there is relative protection. Why I call it relative is depend also where you are. Take for granted somebody that is in Karo, Nyanya, Kurudu, are not as protected as somebody that is in the city center. So if you now look at the urban rural areas, you also note that the rural area are less secured. And if you add that to the rural area, then you conclude that the rural area are more affected.
In other words, there are a lot more ungoverned spaces.
Ungoverned spaces, yes, in the rural area
than in the urban areas.
area.
Now,
Yes.
so what does that suggest to us? I mean, for the security of our people who live
In the rural area.
these rural areas.
Okay, so one thing I know that some of them have tried to embed, because there is usually one of the reasons why this thing is high is because of, as he had said, the ungoverned spaces within the rural environment. And what some of these rural environment chiefs have done is to develop their own internal security system by getting VGN, that's the vigilante group of Nigeria, to help in augmenting the little security that they have. Because truth be told, the numbers of policemen that we have in the country cannot govern the numbers of citizens in terms of amount. It's like 400,000 to less than 1 million to over 200 million persons. So the size of force professionals that we have can't do the job of governing the total number of communities that we have. So they have to now help themselves, and by helping themselves is to embed VGN and internal security operatives like the vigilante group to help them augment their security. However, there's also the challenge of capacity development for those category of persons, because they may not have the intellectual know-how. It's not just about getting someone and pursuing someone, or someone that they consider to be a criminal. It's not that it goes beyond that. There is the need for intellectual development for this set of I call them professionals, who would need to know how to carry out intelligence, how to know if certain persons that is in the community, that is not in the community, find himself in the community, how to pass that intelligence, and a whole lot of information that they need to know how to process, information processing. So the inability for these guys to be able to carry out that may in a way reduce the level of efficiency in their operations. So while they are doing their best in achieving what they are achieving, because we still see in news where vigilante arrest somebody and hands over the person to the police. We still see that in news. So we can't completely rule out the efforts they are putting in ensuring that this security is achieved within the community. But beyond that, I think we need to look for a way to go to community policing, whereby we integrate extensive, we legalize the community policing by engaging them in capacity development, building their intellectual prowess and their capacity to be able to carry out this, then integrating them into the security architecture, because the security architecture does not have them completely integrated and legally integrated. They may be operating, there are operations that happen, I know, there are operations that happen that they involve them. Even the police involve VGN operatives in carrying out those operations, especially when they are going to rural area. They involve these operatives, but involving them, in most cases usually. I'm involving you because I need to involve you. It's not as though that it is part of the security architecture of the country to involve those kind of persons. Maybe it's there, but it's not it's not yet legal. If it is integrated into our legal security architecture, it's easier to integrate VGN operative into different operations, and that can help to mitigate crime.
Can I comment? Yeah. Actually, the issue of vigilantes should not be underrated. They are very effective when it comes to getting to criminal ends, especially within their environment. I want to say this from experience. When I was in secondary school in Okene, there was some attack that came, strange attacks that came to Okene land. They were killing people, destroying women and all that. And of course, the chiefs, the local chiefs, agreed that, look, we should form a vigilantes. We have young men. And the young men gathered, and they were doing it turn by turn. And within 3 months, these criminals flew away, and nobody to come back again. When Yaya Bello came on board, Kogi was one of the center for kidnapping. And he said, no, he formed a vigilante group too, statewide. And any person they know is a criminal, in fact, they go after them and handed them over to police. And within 6 months, the issue of kidnapping for ransom came to a close in Kogi State, and I can boast of that to everybody that, I mean, I stand to be challenged. Now, the problem is that
has that vigilante group been disbanded? Because I'm sure you have heard and read about recent incidents of whole bus loads of persons being kidnapped in that Kogi axis.
Yeah, it might not be as effective as it was during Yaya Bello for now. But the reason I don't know. But what happened during Yaya Bello was that kidnappings stopped. I would say almost completely stopped. And the police were carried along. In fact, we are not saying the police are not relevant. Just as he said, for me to police a country of 200 million, you need nothing less than 1% of that population, 2 million of police. You cannot, it will be an under-policing, if anything is short of that. At least 1% of 200 million people must be recruited as police. But what do we have? As he said, just around 400,000 policemen, which is grossly inadequate. So if the states are allowed to create and manage these vigilantes and make sure that those that are versatile with their localities are allowed to chase these criminals, they will come to an end soon.
Dr. Onoja, you need to come in here because
Yes,
you are
of
the
course.
security analyst, specialist in our midst. Yes.
All right, I think I need to put some things on balance to see areas where our prof is speaking from and there where my gentle brother is speaking from. I look at it that it's a case of interest. I give you an example. It mentioned Yaya Bello, the then former governor of Kogi State, who is in, I think he's in somewhere with the EFCC battling their case. Now, look.
It's not yet...
You cannot use a regional security to solve a conventional insecurity. Why did I use this? We talked about regional security because what you're talking about, vigilante Kogi State used, that has not stopped kidnapping for ransom in Kogi State, even then when Yaya Bello was a governor. When Otop created the Benue Security Guard, that has not stopped the case of the Fulani herders clashes in Benue State, in Agatu, the killings on a daily basis. And that's why I use a single things. You can use regional security to solve conventional insecurity. The Amotekuns and all of it that happened in the east, the southwest, and also the south, we have not seen, even though they, in their first inauguration term, did well, they later became a problem. Why? There's no sustainability. I give you an example. The same boys you said, oh, look, after Yaya Bello left, I've not seen how effective they are. Where are the same boys now? Perhaps they have they've let them go. What become the fate of the people? They're going to begin to use the same boys against the community. Now, travel around our states, travel around the roads. Now, I'll give you an example. And the same Kogi State you talked about, you will see our conventional security officers, the police, no one is left alone. The police, the army, all of them at different checkpoints. You will see that young man who is a person that goes to the trailer to collect the money, who is the same boy that are going to remove that log of food they put on the road as checkpoints that barricades the road. He's the one to collect the money. He's the one that they're going to use. He lives in the community. These are the set of boys that call the vigilantes. I am not saying that's why the Inspector General of Police the Inspector General of Police in his wisdom says, come. One time he disbanded the VGM because of the excesses of some of those people. Now, those same boys, they collect the money. The moment these conventional police officers remove their checkpoints, or for one way or the other, they are being transferred, they form illegal checkpoints. They come back because they already have been radicalized. They have tested, how sweet the money is. They'll go back and begin to collect the money. Ordinarily, what would have solved the problem is a federal structure, which is the community policing. Unfortunately, the case of community policing has not come to be. Why? Because what is community policing is a community versus the police. And so because of the distrust between the people and the police, that has affected somehow the case of community policing. So the only way we can begin to achieve security is a case of neighborhood watch, which we are talking about the vigilante. But in this instance, they must, like my brother said, be integrated. They must be on the payroll of the federal, of either of the state government, and not one government comes and then disband them. They must be legalized. They must go through the legal structures and then be carried along and be integrated. Otherwise, political actors, gladiators, will begin to appoint their foot soldiers as heads of all of this. And that's what's happened in Kogi State, where some persons begin to feel like they are using thugs, to attack oppositions. That we have heard and we have seen. But I am not here to hold brief for any of them. I'm only saying that in the case of security, you don't attach it to one actor. Otherwise, it's going to be failure. So if we want to achieve success in the case of security, all we need to do is that they must go through the legal framework, either by the state or be commissioned by the federal government. And that must come from the federal government because of what? The payment structures. If not so, you begin to have this, intelligence rivalries. Who are you? Why are you here? Even within the states where there is no parley between even this police and the same VGN, you hear the case of why are you here? Who empowered you to come for this arrest? Or who even do this? And before you even say, I'm coming to hand over to you, they say you don't have that right. So until they go through the legal framework as a supportive agency to the federal government, to the current structures we have, the security architectures we have. And then one other thing to solve this problem is to decentralize our over-centralized security architecture. Once that is done, then we can begin to have the branches of some of those things in the rural areas where we can now see them effectively going to this neighbor and say, oh, you brought somebody in last night. Who is that person? We saw him came in through it. That is where effective neighborhood watch can take place. But when we are hearing, like the governor of Benue State a few days ago, His Excellency Governor Hyacinthe Alia just inaugurated another set of state what they call civil protection guards. Now, if he leaves office today, what I'm trying to say is that if he leaves office today, another governor comes and he brings another set of people. Now, the question that comes to mind is that those people that were inaugurated during his time, during the former governor, His Excellency Governor Samuel Oton, their time, what happened to them? They'll be left to they left because I'm in touch with these guys and I know I speak to them almost on a weekly basis, down to my community. You understand? I have been involved in even purchasing torchlight for my own ward. One of the head leader then, popularly known as Zico. I have to purchase torchlight for them. The government abandoned them. So what I'm trying to say is that when there is no consistency and because they have not gone through the legal framework, one government will come and leave them, and then they leave them to their fate. These are the same people we are hearing cases of kidnapping and all of the robbery within the rural areas today. It's the same people. Because government is insensitive to them.
I'll come back to you. Okay. Is it a coincidence, going by the MBS report, that the numbers, the figures of kidnapping for ransom appear to be lower in certain parts of the country where they have these
vigilantes.
vigilante security outfits
Yes.
than in other parts
When they are being
where they are not.
when they are being serviced. What I'm trying to say is that when they are serviced, like you talked about, you look at the same figure you talked about from the MBS. In the Northwest, after the Northwest, we come to North Central. Which of the state has the highest? It's Benue. The North Central is Benue State. Does that mean
Benue and Niger.
Does that mean Benue has the highest? I'm talking about North Central. Does Benue not have state security vigilantes before now? Were they not inaugurated during the civil protection guards during former Governor Samuel Oton? Has it not also been reinvented and been inaugurated by the current governor? But we have the highest.
Only recently.
And
these figures are from May 2023
to April.
don't they have
2024.
vigilantes in Benue State? I am only trying to make this clear to people to understand that it is not just about creating security apparatus or security architecture you cannot maintain. You must sustain these guys because their sustainability is key. When you don't, you can't bring people to protect you and they are hungry. You understand what I'm trying to say? I am aware that where these people operate, I am aware in my locality where the person I just mentioned was able to rescue a vehicle that was stolen and also motorcycles around 2 a.m. in my locality, back then in the village. But I'm trying to let you know that these guys are not being paid. They're not on the payroll of the local government, not of the state government. And then you expect them to begin to do, magic. Even where I live currently, the chief have to say, come on, gentlemen, all landlords has to pay money. Do you understand it? This thing is not legal. So if you are a landlord and you have security in your place and you say you are not paying, that is a minus. Where there's no sustainability.
Nobody can compel you to do it.
To do that.
Yeah.
But where the federal government take responsibility. We heard talking about the case of ungoverned spaces, and I laugh. It is not about ungoverned spaces, because these spaces you're talking about have local government, have the council ward, have the local government chairman, have the state house of assembly, has house of reps and senatorial districts. It is not ungoverned spaces. We should tag it and call it the way it is. It is where government feels irresponsible to the people. Where government is not responsible to people is irresponsibility. So it is where government has abandoned that we are talking about ungoverned spaces, because they still generate IGR from these areas and it still go to the government coffers. So it is not ungoverned spaces. When we say ungoverned spaces, we should rather say unsecured or unattended places by the government. So these things are all involving, but we should nip it on the board, because it's not just about creating security architectures and inaugurating them. Can you sustain them after 8 years? The anti-open grazing law in Benue State, how effectively have they been able to match that? You understand it? Government is sustainability. Government is continuity. If you cannot continue in all of these things, we should not give accolades to one government. You just mentioned about my dear professor said, so the thing has perhaps the increase in kidnapping around Kogi State is because Governor Yaya Bello is not there again. Come on. Do we now allow Governor Yaya Bello to be there because he's the only governor that can perform? Where there is a key legislative act that has created these people, the current governor Dodo must definitely pay them, and they will continue in their services.
Okay.
Now, what you have analyzed, I will not dispute you grossly. I will agree with you in some area and disagree with you in some areas. But one thing I want you to let us know is that all these things we are talking about, is it the actual fault of the locals, of the state government, or of the federal government? Now, where you see a situation and the major responsibility of security is with the federal government. And if the federal government do not devote their powers to the state government with budgeting. With what? Budgeting. There is no person. Hold on.
You still take security votes of the state, sir.
Come.
You are still taking security votes.
Hold on. There is no person that you employ. If you don't pay them, they will turn against you. Even your footballers at international level. Are you getting what I'm saying now? It is very, very imperative that we should know that if there is going to be a consistency and sustainability, of course, these security people must be well paid, must be paid and be well paid.
So what do the states
That
do with
do-
their security allocations? That's the question
all
he's asking.
the security allocation.
Because they're in
I'm
their
not-
budget
yeah,
estimates
is there,
every year.
is there on their budget. And of course, that is where some of them draw from to pay the existing security then.
No, they
But-
don't pay.
Hold on, hold on.
The
If
government,
you say they
the
don't
state
pay,
government does not pay.
no, if what I mean by security system is this their own local, the ones they formed, they must pay them. Of course, I knew that the ones that they formed in Kogi State were paid. They were paid. But I'm not there. I don't know what is happening now, and I cannot vouch for the current administration. I don't know what is going on. But I know Ododo is doing well, and he will pick it up. He's a very intelligent human being. He will definitely pick it up and make sure that there's continuity in all the good governance of his predecessors. Now, the issue we want to look at now is whose fault it is. Because there is a sabotage from above. Sabotage from the federal government. You just spoken now that people will be quite, the commissioner can question you and said, who asked you to arrest this man? What authority do you have? Or any other person can do that.
Okay, doctor, let me just...
The fact is that...
Let me drag you to another aspect of this,
okay, sir.
because of time.
Okay, sir.
The amount of money that were paid as ransom,
Yes.
2.2
trillion.
trillion,
Yes, sir.
in an economy that
is dwindling.
That is dwindling,
Yeah.
such as ours.
Yeah.
How much impact does that have on this economy?
A very serious impact. Because this 2.2 trillion can set up 6 industries in 6 geopolitical areas, employ these people that are criminally minded, and retrain them, de-radicalize them, and put them into use. But I want to tell you...
but these are monies that are coming from private pockets.
Private pockets.
Yes.
But I want to tell you that the money that is stolen, even in the government, is 10 times more than this. 10 times, quote me. Last time when I came here, I told the audience, I said, look, Nigeria don't need to borrow money. As a forensic auditor, I can make sure, I can prove that we can draw out money from the stolen money that will be sufficient to finance 2 years' budget. The budget of this last time is around 47 trillion, isn't it? Approximately to 50 trillion. All we are talking about is just 30 billion naira. The singular profit of GM Motors or Ford in first quarter is around 40 billion. One company in US.
Dollars. Yes.
Dollars. So if you are looking
our budget
to our
for
own whole
2025
budget of the whole country,
less than
which is
that
less
of
than that of GM, which is a profit. And out of that profit, even if you pay 10%, if all of them pay 10%, that's 10 billion. I mean, 4 billion or thereabouts. So the government there will have money. Government here cannot have money because the private sector has been destroyed. And that is why the government is struggling. And who destroyed this economy is the people that are in government, the same government. And the same government doesn't have the moral standing or the political will to go after these people who are called cabals. And when these cabals, you try to touch them, they will call... I worked in a place where you want to examine some people's book, some companies' book, some banks' book, and they will tell you, Dr. David, leave that place. And what do you do?
You have no choice but
you have to go.
Okay.
So that is where we have our problem. So if all of us are suffering it, we are suffering it.
So it's the failure of governance. We come back again to the failure of governance.
Exactly.
Mr. Jafar, let's now pay some attention to these cyber security issues. Now we have a situation where we have hundreds of foreigners, Chinese, Filipinos, and what have you, being the ones engage in cyber fraud and all manner of schemes across, in almost every city in Nigeria today. I'm sure if the EFCC or the police go after them, you will find such cells in various cities across Nigeria. But at least the ones that have been reported are the ones of Abuja and Lagos. Yet they are operating from within Nigeria and they are scamming people internationally, and it is the name of Nigeria that is at stake.
Okay, so when we talk about cybercrime, most persons usually look at Nigeria to be we are fifth anyway, globally. Global ranking, cybercrime index placed Nigeria as fifth, ahead of Russia, US, China, and Ukraine. And if you're looking at those four countries, you'll find out that there are issues that would warrant them being at the top of that incident. We have the US, China Cold War. We have the Ukraine-Russia war. So while the physical war is going on, there is the cyber war that is also going on. So they can give reasons. We can give reasons why they are the top of it. But if you're looking at it from the Nigerian perspective, being the fifth, there is not as though that we are passing through any war. There is no economic war. There is no physical war and all that. And why then are we in that rank? Nigerians are generally good at social engineering, and cybercrime is not just social engineering. Social engineering is the manipulative way of asking somebody or telling somebody to do what on the norms they would not want to do. Like most of us probably would have received somebody calling us and telling us our account number, our account has something has happened to our account and all that we should. They are all tactics of social engineering. It really does not involve the skill of hacking. So Nigerians are largely not good in hacking. And several occasions I've mentioned that I know fully well, I have known Nigerians who have come to meet me and said, come and teach me hacking. If I know the kind of skill that, if I have the kind of skill that you have, I know what I would have been using it to do. And they've come to approach me and said, get me involved in this skill, let me learn this skill, because what I usually do is I want to understand the mindset that is driving you before you even get acquainted with this skill. So we are learning, but we've not learned to the extent where we become custodian of this skill and use this skill wholeheartedly. So what did we do now?
There's a gap there. So the Chinese and the Filipinos
exactly.
are
So
filling that gap.
What did we do now? What we did was to collaborate with those who have that expertise. Because in the course of social engineering, there is usually what's it called? The life cycle of a social engineering attack comes with there are specific kind of attack that would require you to be involved in hacking. Not all, but specific one would involve you to be involved. Will require you to be involved in hacking. And because we don't have that skill, we now have to we have to bring expertise. Now collaborating with those experts to get involved and carry out that aspect in the life cycle of an attack. And while that is alarming, what should be more alarming is the fact that by the time we are now done learning this skill, it becomes a challenge for us as a country, because now it's not just the experts. We are arresting experts, and it's good that we are arresting them, yes. But Nigerians are learning it. Nigerians are learning hacking. It's not as though that there are two sides. There is the ethical hacking and there is the malicious act of hacking. So it saddens me because most Nigerians or most youth get towards using hacking for malicious purposes.
So what's the way out? Yeah.
Well, I think the way out, we should begin to find an alternative to engage the youths who are involved in some of these acts. Because most times you go, like I usually
But how do we check foreigners who get into Nigeria, some of them illegally, exactly. Well, and get into these illegal activities?
Our immigrations officers are there. The intelligence units are also there. We have the NIA, we have the DSS, we have the immigrations, who are also supposed to be on their toes 24 hours to check the SSCs of some of those foreigners who are among us, committing these crimes.
Okay.
And if we are able to bring our youths who are either jobless, because out of joblessness, most of these things happened. And so if we are able to create an environment where our youth are favorably favored and engaged, they can actually turn this experience and begin to use it perhaps
positive purpose.
positive purpose in ethical hacking, perhaps not all of this malicious hacking.
All right, Dr. David.
Yes.
Very quickly,
Yes, sir.
because we're rounding up our discussion.
The issue of hacking, as he said, is in two ways. There is ethical hacking and there is malicious hacking. For those that are having an ethical hacking skill, they are professionals and they know the ethics surrounding it. But if you just go ahead, teach anybody, he can use it for anything. So it is necessary that the Institute of Forensic Auditors and Fraud Examiners should take it up from now and make sure that cybercrime is limited to people that have the qualification, and cyber crime protection is limited to people that have the skills and the professional qualification to use it.
Okay, all right.
Well, while that is good, it's going to. No, cybercrime is not a battle you fight with from the institute's point of view alone. It is it's an industry that requires both the government, the public, and
the institute will take it to the government. So, just like what ICANN is doing. Sorry for interrupting you.
I understand, but sorry.
Just like what ICANN does in accounting profession, we don't allow quacks. And once we get to them, we know what to do.
Okay.
Okay, so now,
very quickly.
For hacking, for example, just as you having a gun, it's easier for you to license a gun. Gun, you can just give someone a license without you having the physical gun. You really can't do anything, even though you have the license. You need the physical gun. But hacking is a skill. It's an intellectual skill, and you can learn it anywhere.
All right.
So because you can learn it anywhere, it's practically difficult for you to manage. So you have to ensure that there are ways to go about this, but it needs to be an integration. Now, the first thing is that there is a lack, there is a abuse.
Honey, we have to go very quick.
There is the abuse of our social and our political, our societal and family values. That's one thing that is driving the force in hacking, because we've seen mothers enroll their children in this skill for the malicious purpose of it. The Budapest Cybercrime Foundation also necessitated and mandated that most countries that have appended and have signed to that treaty establish what is known as cybercrime court, specialized court for cybercrime. We don't have that in this country. Okay. Then there is the low funding for even the agencies that are also doing this.
Mr. Jafaru, we have to go. Our time is up. Thank you so much, gentlemen. There's so much to unpack from your own end, but we have to go. We'll continue to monitor the process. Thank you, gentlemen. Dr. Jonathan Onoja is a security analyst. Thank you for your time.
Thank you,
Dr. David Aheruvo, FCA, an economist, chartered accountant, and forensic auditor. Thank you for your time.
Thank you,
and of course, Mr. Hania Jafaru, who is an artificial intelligence and cybersecurity consultant. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's our program for today. Please join us again when we bring you a fresh edition of the program People, Politics, and Power. To have yourself a wonderful time. Bye for now.